Good morning, respected dignitaries, faculty members, and colleagues. I'm Dr. Samparna Bohidar, first year senior resident, Department of Neurology. Before dwelling into the theoretical aspect of headache, I would like to present two brief case scenarios that highlight the clinical relevance of today's topic. 46-year-old male patient presenting with sudden severe headache for 45 minutes, explaining it as the worst headache of his life, which peaked within 30 seconds, associated with nausea, neck stiffness, and there was no other focal neurological deficit. How would you approach this case? And what investigation would you advise? NCCT brain, contrast enhanced brain, MRI plain, MRI contrast, MRI angio, or MRI venography. Out of these investigations, there is always confusion on what is to be done next. So with this, I would like to move to the next case. So the next case, 26-year-old female patient presenting with recurrent episodic headache for 5 years, which is throbbing in nature, moderate to severe intensity and frequency of 3 to 4 episodes per month, associated with nausea, photophonophobia, family history of similar type of headache. So what investigation would be done next is NCCT brain, contrast enhanced CT, MRI brain plane, contrast enhanced MRI, MRI angio, MRI video. Again, there is a question, what to do next? As we go through this seminar, these questions and queries will be answered precisely with current recommendation. The outline of our presentation will be Introduction to Headache with Pathophysiology, Clinical Approach to Headache, Headache through Ophthalmological Lens, and then we'll have the neuroimaging investigation, what and when to order. Lastly, we'll approach the headache with common case scenarios. Headache is defined according to ICHD-3 as pain located in the head above the orbitomeatal line, which is the line joining the outer canthus of the eye to the external auditory meatus, and the nuchal ridge, which is the upper border of the neck. Headache is one of the most common neurological complaints seen in clinical practice and contributes significantly to global disability and morbidity. Broadly, headache can be classified as primary and secondary types. According to Global Burden of Disease Study, migraine tension type headache and medication overuse headache are the most prevalent headache disorders and contribute significantly to global disability, emphasizing their major clinical and public health importance. This map highlights the global disability burden of headache disorders, showing that headaches are major contributor to years lived with disability across many regions in the world. In India, 1 year prevalence of any headache is 67.9%. Proper evaluation of headache is crucial, as it helps distinguish primary headache disorders from potentially life-threatening secondary causes. 70% of brain parenchyma is pain insensitive. The pain sensitive structures which are responsible for pain or headache are scalp, dura mater, proximal intracranial blood vessels, venous sinuses, cranial nerves like trigeminal nerve, glossopharyngeal vagus, especially upper cervical nerves, and headache and head and neck muscles, which contribute to pain receptors. As mentioned earlier, only certain structures are pain sensitive, such as scalp, dura, blood vessels, cranial nerves. Most pain signals travel via trigeminal nerve, while posterior head pain travels through C2, C3 routes. These signals converge in the trigeminocervical complex and ascend to the cortex. Convergence and sensitization explain referred pain and chronic headache patterns. Earlier, headache was said as vascular headache, but now with better understanding, it is a neurally generated pathophysiology. Peripheral pain generators, which include vascular distension, meningeal irritation, muscle tension, sinus pathology, or ocular disorders. These structures activate trigeminal pain fibers, leading to headache. Once the peripheral pain generators are triggered, trigeminovascular activation begins with the stimulation of trigeminal nerve fibers supplying the meninges. This leads to neuropeptide release and vasodilation, causing neurogenic inflammation. pain signals travel to the trigeminal-cervical complex and then ascend to higher centers. CGRP is a neuropeptide released from the trigeminal nerve endings during migraine. It causes vasodilation, neurogenic inflammation, and amplification of pain signals, making it as a key mediator of migraine headache. Nowadays, we have therapies targeting CGRP receptors. In headache, the process begins with changes in brain electrical activity, followed by activation of the trigeminal vascular system, which ultimately leads to pain. One of the key mechanisms involved as cortical spreading depression. This refers to a slowly propagating wave of neuronal and glial depolarization that travels across the cerebral cortex, followed by prolonged suppression of cortical activity. Central sensitization is a condition in which neurons with the central nervous system becomes hyperexcitable and show lower threshold for activation, resulting in amplified and prolonged pain perception. So the abortive therapies in headache are meant to be taken before central sensitization begins, that is, as soon as the headache starts. In case of secondary headache, raised ICP causes headache by stretching of pain-sensitive structures like the dura and venous sinuses. Meningeal irritation, as seen in meningitis or subarachnoid hemorrhage, directly activates the trigeminal pain fibers, leading to severe headache with neck stiffness. Classification of headache. So, before we start, why it is important? Classification of headache is crucial because it guides treatment, helps us decide when and what imaging to be done, provides a prognostic information, prevents unnecessary investigation, reduces the finance burden and polypharmacy. The first attempt at headache classification was made in 1962 by the NIH. Later, ICHD-3, which is proposed in 2018, is used nowadays. Headache classification includes three major groups: primary, secondary and neuropathies pain, in which primary headache disorders include migraine, tension type. Secondary headache due to systemic cause includes trauma, infection, substance abuse, among others. So now I would like to call Dr. Somil Jain to further elaborate the classification clinical approach to headache. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samparna. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Dr. Somil Jain, second year junior assistant from Department of General Medicine. I would like to stroll our discussion towards the clinical evaluation of headache with a systemic diagnostic approach. Now, as we have learned, headache is a symptom, not a diagnosis. As a clinician, our first duty should be to exclude secondary causes, that is by red flags identification. And why it is important? Because missing a secondary headache can be fatal. History taking is the most important tool for diagnosis, making us reach the diagnosis in 80% of the cases. Our key aim is to identify dangerous headaches via red flags, further classifying them into primary and secondary headaches. History is primarily elaborated on onset, duration, frequency, location, character, and triggers for headache. Now, what is the red flag? Red flags are symptoms or other pieces of information that encourage testing or observation of the patient, demanding for immediate attention and evaluation for secondary cause. Snoop 10 is a mnemonic used to identify red flags suggesting secondary headache. For example, in malignancy, constitutional symptoms like weight loss, fever, night sweats. In case of neurological cases like focal neurological deficits, behavioral change, and alarming signs such as sudden excruciating headaches, headaches which are acute in onset and maximal at the presentation, onset before 5 and after 65 years, change in headache pattern, headaches during pregnancy. These are the red flags that demand immediate attention. This slide shows the latest classification of ICHD-3, the standard international system for headache disorders. Headache are broadly divided into primary, secondary, and painful cranial neuropathies, other facial pains. Although, as we can see in this video, there are almost 100 different kinds of headaches in ICHD-3. But our clinical practice mainly focuses on the three major groups: Further, why classification is important? Because it makes us identify various causative factors and helps us avoiding triggers and polypharmacy. Now, this is the diagnostic approach for the headache. Evaluation of headache should follow a stepwise approach. First, a patient presenting with a headache, our first aim should be to identify red flags. As we have learned earlier, red flags can present as alarming signs in this fashion. Further, if there is a red flag, we should immediately investigate the patient further for the secondary headache. If the red flags are absent, we should proceed towards the clinical examination. If it's an abnormal or not a typical pattern for a headache, we must think of a secondary headache. And if the headache presents with a typical pattern, we must think of a primary headaches, that are migraines, tension type headaches and cluster headaches. Primary headaches are diagnosed mainly by pattern recognition in patient's history rather than investigations. For example, migraines present as episodic attacks lasting for more than 4 hours, which may progress to chronic migraine, and pain is throbbing or pulsatile, moderate to severe in intensity. If the pain is dull, pressing or tight band-like, one must think of tension type of headaches. Cluster headache occurs at short attacks lasting for about 15 to 180 minutes, occurring in clusters with remission periods. In this case, pain is severe, stabbing, and strictly unilateral. Now, migraine is the most overdiagnosed primary headache in a clinical OPD. However, most of them are tension headaches and headaches occurring due to secondary causes such as infective etiologies. This simple tabular data presentation depicts how important is history taking to identify the right kind of headache and manage them adequately, as all headaches are pains but treatment for each kind is distinct. So the most crucial entity in our approach is to articulate history upon onset, duration, frequency, location, character, and identification of the triggers. Talking about the onset of the headache, sudden and maximal onset point towards a vascular pathology like subarachnoid hemorrhage, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, and demands immediate treatment. While subacute onset is for infections and a headache developing gradually may point towards a tumor or migraine. Any headache which is short, ultra short, is vascular unless proven otherwise. Duration in seconds are usually for neuralgias, minutes for SAH and CVST. Migraine and cluster can go on for hours. If a headache persists for days, one may think of infective etiologies. Frequency helps us classifying headaches into acute and chronic, as chronic pathologies demand prophylaxis along with symptomatic relief of the pain. Headache occurring on greater than 15 days per month for at least 3 consecutive months, regardless of the underlying cause, are chronic headaches. Duration of greater than 4 hours daily may hint our diagnosis towards chronic migraine, chronic tension headaches, hemicrania continua, while lesser than 4 hours accounts for chronic clusters, paroxysmal hemicrania, sun city suna, and hypnic headaches. Hypnic headaches are the headaches which occur exclusively during sleep, usually waking up the patient. Moving on, the location of the pain. For example, in migraines, they are usually unilateral, band-like sensation as in tension headaches. Clusters are periorbital in fashion, while facial distribution of headache along with nasal secretions hint towards sinusitis. Dwelling upon the character and severity of the pain, if the headache is worst ever and explosive, one must think of subarachnoid hemorrhage, CVST, intracerebral hemorrhage, and receive immediate attention of a neurologist, while throbbing and moderate pain usually are migraines, band-like tight and mild sensation are tension headaches, while stabbing pains are mostly neuralgias. An important aspect of our history taking is to point out the triggers of the headache, which can do wonders for a patient's management. Triggers can be dietary like caffeine and alcohol, environmental like exposure to bright light, strong odors, physical like sleep deprivation, neck strains, overexertions, biological like hormonal shifts, stress, allergies, Avoiding triggers can help in avoiding not only polypharmacy but even in many cases pharmacy. Moving on to the secondary headache. A secondary headache is a headache caused by underlying disorder. Identification of a secondary headache is necessary because it demands immediate attention. It is important to identify the red flags as shown in the table, as secondary headaches may present subtly that require immediate attention. Now, as in this flow chart, as we have learned earlier, if a patient presents with headache and have we identified the red flags, we should strictly think and investigate for a secondary headache. And upon examination, if the patient is having not a typical pattern or abnormal examination, then we must again think of a secondary headache. A brief comment on the pathophysiology for secondary headache. Secondary headache can arise from stretch of pain-sensitive structures as in tumor and hydrocephalus, vessel rupture and thrombosis as in SCH and CVST, meningeal inflammation as in meningitis, while metabolic causes and drugs also contributes towards secondary headaches. Now I would like to describe headache under infective, vascular, systemic, neoplastic, metabolic and drug-induced causes. First, the vascular causes. A worst ever headache which is sudden, one should strictly think of a subarachnoid hemorrhage, while progressive severe headache with seizures is usually cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. Again, if an acute focal neurological deficit presents with a headache, one must strictly think of an intracerebral hemorrhage. While a patient presenting with history of jaw claudication, aged over 50 years and temporal pain is usually temporal arteritis. Hypertension is one of the most common systemic cause of headache accounted in a clinical OPD. Headaches with hypertension demands an urgent attention because it may be an hypertensive emergency in which blood pressure is greater than 180 by 120 millimeters of mercury. Headache with confusions can be hypertensive encephalopathies. Headache associated with palpitation may point our diagnosis towards an underlying pheochromocytoma, while morning headaches point towards obstructive sleep apnea. Thus, screening every patient for hypertension in an OPD should be our golden rule. Amongst the infective causes, meningitis usually presents as a triad of headache, neck rigidity, and fever. Encephalitis is usually harnessed with an altered sensorium, while focal deficits may point towards an underlying brain abscess, and frequent nasal discharges with headache is a cue for sinusitis. Nocturnal awakenings, headache which is worse in the morning, point towards neoplastic etiologies of the brain. Most common being the metastasis followed by glioblastoma multiforme. Such headaches may be accompanied with visual cues like blurring of vision and diplopia as well as projectile vomiting. Switching to the metabolic causes of headache, uremia, hypoxia, hypercapnia, some of the metabolic causes for the headache. Neurogenic symptoms with dizziness in common with hypoglycemia. What may be curing headache might also be causing headache. Many people tend to take over-the-counter analgesic for various kinds of pains. Less do they know that analgesic overuse is amongst the most common cause of drug-induced headache. Patients on nitrates may suffer headache due to cerebral vasodilatation, while oral contraceptive pills and steroid withdrawal may also contribute towards secondary headache. With that, to channel our discussion forward, I would like to invite Dr. Ishita to discuss the ophthalmic causes of headache.
Thank you, Dr. Somil. Good morning, respected dignitaries, teachers, and my dear colleagues. I, Dr. Ishita Rota, third-year resident from the Department of Ophthalmology, will be decoding headache through the ophthalmic lens. The ophthalmic causes of headache are secondary headaches arising from ocular pathologies rather than a primary neurological disorder. The clinical presentation of the patient provides major clues on the ophthalmic causes of headache, from benign conditions like refractive error to life-threatening and vision-altering entities like ocular ischemic syndrome. Refractive error is the most common cause of ophthalmic headaches. Frontal headache with accommodative strain is indicative, and patient gets quick relief with corrective lenses. Often underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed as migraine or raised intracranial pressure, acute angle closure glaucoma presents with severe unilateral headache along with colored halos, and there is a risk of permanent visual loss. A patient presenting with the triad of dull headache with painful ocular movements and color desaturation is a direct pointer towards optic neuritis. This should trigger immediate evaluation as it often signals a demyelinating disease such as multiple sclerosis. A patient presenting with headache, photophobia and red eye may appear to have cluster headache but is often an ocular entity called uveitis. In such cases, the headache is secondary to ocular inflammation and ciliary spasm. It is often a manifestation of a systemic or a neurological disorder. Headache which radiates to the temple or jaw with a limbal nodule and violaceous hue of the sclera clues us towards scleritis. It is a marker of systemic autoimmune and vasculitic disease. Its association with temporal arteritis is particularly critical as headache and ocular pain may herald sight-threatening ischemia. The typical presentation of ipsilateral headache accompanied by transient vision loss known as amaurosis fugax points directly towards ocular ischemic syndrome. It is caused by chronic ocular hypoperfusion due to severe carotid stenosis. The most common mimic of migraine is idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Both of these entities present with visual disturbances, but in fundus examination, it is revealed that papilledema will be present in cases of IIH. Thus, funduscopy is the most important ocular test in headache evaluation. The optic nerve and the retina are the only parts of the central nervous system which are visible non-invasively. As we can see in these images, papilledema presents with bilateral blurring of disc margins. In ocular ischemic syndrome, there will be diffuse retinal hemorrhages and microaneurysms, and optic neuritis will present with an unilateral blurring of disc margins. The visual field assessment provides earliest objective sign and is a critical tool in distinguishing primary from secondary causes. Each headache type has a characteristic visual field clue. So if a patient presents with morning headache and papilledema, on visual field we will see an enlarged blind spot, and this is indicative of raised intracranial pressure or idiopathic intracranial hypertension. Headache with acute vision loss will present as a central scotoma. This points us towards optic neuritis. Chronic dull headache with arcuate scotoma is generally a diagnosis towards glaucoma. Headache with endocrine features showing bitemporal hemianopia on perimetry will be indicative of pituitary adenoma. And headache with vascular risk with an altitudinal field loss will be ocular ischemic syndrome. So decoding headache through the ophthalmic lens means recognizing these ocular signs from benign conditions like refractive errors to entities requiring systemic evaluations and ocular emergencies such as angle closure attack. The eye provides critical diagnostic evidences for underlying causes of secondary headaches. Now that we have discussed the clinical aspects of headache, I would like to invite Dr. Tamanna to continue with the radiological perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Ishita. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Tamanna Soni, second year resident from the Department of Radiodiagnosis. Will be presenting on topic in imaging in headache. There is no single imaging test for the headache. There are four main modalities which are CT, MRI, MRI venography and CT angiography. Choice of imaging depends on how the patient presents clinically. American College of Radiology has given imaging criteria for the patients presenting with a new headache. Scenario 1. If a patient presents with the worst headache of the life, then non-contrast CT is done first. If the CT is abnormal, then we go for CT angiography and MRI brain. Scenario 2. If a patient is a pregnant female, we prefer modalities which avoid radiation. So MRI is advised. For suspected meningitis, MRI with contrast is preferred to look for any meningeal enhancement and also to detect early complications. For immunocompromised and cancer patients, MRI with contrast is more preferred as opportunistic infections and metastasis show abnormal enhancement pattern. A patient with focal neurological deficit, we go for MRI because we suspect space occupying lesions and raised intracranial pressure. Now for the chronic headaches. If a patient is present with no new features and normal examination, then MRI is done only if required because it can detect certain lesions that CT might miss. For a patient with new features, raises concern for the secondary causes. So, CT can be done initially to exclude any hemorrhage or large mass effect, but MRI is preferred for better tissue characterization. For positional headache, MRI is the first investigation to detect indirect signs of CSF leak, and MRI myelography helps us to localize the site of the CSF leak. As discussed earlier, CT brain is usually the recommended investigation in the case of intracranial hemorrhage because it can detect the early investigation. It is widely available and can be performed very rapidly, which is crucial in the emergency settings. However, CT has some limitations in detecting early ischemic changes and subtle infective changes. Also, it has limited ability to characterize vascular lesions. Additionally, CT uses ionizing radiation, which limits its use in young and pregnant females. Now discussing two common causes of the acute headache which can be detected on CT. Image 1 is an NCCT brain in the axial section. The two arrow highlights the hyperdense blood in the sylvian fissure and the basal cistern. This presentation is typically seen in subarachnoid hemorrhage. Image 2 is NCCT brain in axial section. Arrow points towards a well-defined hyperdense area within the brain parenchyma in the left thalamic region. This is intracerebral hemorrhage. The hypotense rim around this shows us the edema. Now I will discuss the role of MRI in the evaluation of the headache. MRI is highly sensitive for detecting early infection such as meningitis and encephalitis, which may appear normal on CT. MRI provides excellent soft tissue contrast, making it the modality of choice for detecting tumors and metastasis, and also helps in defining the lesion extent. However, MRI has certain limitations. MRI has limited availability in the emergency setting and it requires a longer scan time. It is contraindicated in the patient with certain implants or those who are clinically unstable. Additionally, MRI is relatively expensive compared to CT, which limits its routine use. Image 1 and image 2 are the axial post-contrast images. There is diffuse enhancement along the cortical sulci and the basal cistern, which are shown by the arrow. This is known as the leptomeningeal enhancement, which is seen in meningitis. So far I have discussed the parenchymal causes of the headache. Now the vascular causes. MRI venography is the gold standard imaging modality for diagnosing cerebral venous thrombosis because it can directly assess venous flow. It complements MRI brain, which shows secondary parenchymal changes. Normally, the sinus fills uniformly with the blood and it appears bright on venography. Image on right is the normal, in which it is a contrast-enhanced MRI venography. This is superior sagittal sinus, this is inferior sagittal sinus, this is the straight sinus, transverse sinus, and all of them form a confluence. Image 2 is the sagittal contrast-enhanced MRI, in which we can see the filling defects which are marked by the arrows. This signifies thrombus in the superior sagittal sinus. After discussing venous causes, I will move on to the arterial causes, particularly intracranial aneurysm. CT angiography is used to evaluate the arteries of the brain. It is most commonly preferred when an aneurysm is suspected, especially after subarachnoid hemorrhage. Image 1 is the CT angiography image, which shows a focal sac-like dilatation at the junction of the anterior cerebral artery, which is shown by the red arrow. This location corresponds to anterior communicating artery, which is a common site of intracranial aneurysm. Image 2 is the 3D reconstruction, which shows aneurysm at the anterior communicating artery. Now further discussing imaging findings that reflect intracranial pressure, which clinically presents as papilledema. Image 1 is the sagittal MRI image. The red arrow highlights to enlarged and empty sella. Image 2, the arrow on the right shows the optic nerve sheath which is dilated. This arrow shows flattening and mild bulging of the posterior aspect of the optic disc into the globe. Now for the venous imaging, the blue arrow shows distal narrowing of the right transverse sinus and the green arrow indicates an absent or hypoplastic left transverse sinus. This slide shows a common cause of the chronic headache on MRI, that is a glioma. Such a big SOL can be identified on CT, but MRI helps in better differentiation using different sequences. This image shows a large, well-defined heterogeneous mass lesion which is seen in the left parietal thalamic region, which is iso to hypointense on T1, hyperintense on T2, and hyperintense on the flare, with surrounding edema. Mass is seen extending into the left lateral ventricle, causing effacement of the adjacent sulci and midline shift of 4 to 5 mm towards the right side. Now a case snippet. A 36-year-old female presented with sudden onset thunderclap headache with no focal neurological deficit. Now MRI brain was done as the first investigation, which was normal. Then MRI angiography was done, which shows multifocal, segmental and diffuse narrowing of the large and medium-sized cerebral arteries, which are shown by the red arrow. After the treatment, repeat MRI was done, which showed reversal of the previously noted vasoconstriction. This evaluation from diffuse vasoconstriction to resolution is diagnosis of reversible cerebral vasoconstriction. Having ruled out the vascular causes, we often encounter incidental imaging findings that are radiologically significant but clinically unrelated to the patient headache. On MRI, in image 1, there is an extraaxial cystic lesion in the right temporal lobe, which is hyperintense on T2, hypointense on flare, and hypointense on post-contrast PET-CT T1 image. There is no mass effect, no midline shift, and these imaging features are consistent with the arachnoid cyst. Now I would like to call Dr. Manavdeep Kaur to further guide us.
Thank you, Dr. Tamanna. Good morning, respected dignitaries, faculties, and my dear colleagues. I am Dr. Manavdeep Kaur, Senior Resident, Department of Neurology. I will be taking the presentation forward by discussing the approach to headache through clinical case scenarios which are from our department. Now let's try to decode the case scenario which was discussed earlier during the beginning of the presentation. We have a 46-year-old male presented with sudden onset severe headache described as worst headache of his life, which peaked within 30 seconds. It was associated with nausea and mild neck stiffness with no focal neurological deficit. On examination, nuchal rigidity was present. Now I would like to ask, is this a primary or a secondary headache? What will be the first investigation in this case?
रेजिडेंस प्लीज सबसे पहले meningitis suspect.
It is a secondary headache because red flag signs are present in the form of new onset severe headache, worst headache of life with nuchal rigidity. Then what is the first investigation in this case? As discussed earlier by the radiology department, NCCT head is recommended. What are the causes of thunderclap headache? Subarachnoid hemorrhage, RCVS, CVST, cervical artery dissection, pituitary apoplexy, hypertensive emergency, spontaneous intracranial hypotension, intracerebral hemorrhage. First investigation is NCCT head, which showed hyperdense acute subarachnoid hemorrhage predominantly involving the perimesencephalic cisterns, interpeduncular, prepontine, ambient cistern. Blood is centered anterior to the brainstem. After NCCT head, we did CT angiography, which showed anterior communicating artery aneurysm. I would like to emphasize that in 10 to 15% of the cases who present with sentinel headache, have a normal NCCT head, and in such case scenarios, we should admit the patient and do CSF examination to look for the cremated RBCs for subarachnoid hemorrhage along with CT angiography. So based on history and radiological findings, the diagnosis was subarachnoid hemorrhage due to rupture of anterior communicating artery aneurysm. How we manage this case? As the patient had ruptured ACOM aneurysm as shown in CT angiography, we will prevent the rebleed by maintaining blood pressure, and if the patient is on any anticoagulant, we will reverse it by giving the reversal agent. Definitive treatment is either endovascular coiling or surgical clipping. It should be done preferably within 24 hours. We did endovascular coiling with the help of neurointervention team in our patient as it is a minimal invasive technique. After the procedure, ICU care was followed, patient became symptomatically better and was discharged. Now we will discuss second case. We have 28 years old female, 10 days postpartum, full-term normal vaginal delivery with smooth perinatal transition. Came with severe progressive headache for 5 days, which was holocranial, worse in the morning, and it was associated with 3 episodes of vomiting, blurred vision for 2 days, 1 episode of bilateral tonic-clonic seizure. There was no history of migraine or fever. On examination, she was conscious but drowsy with no focal neurological deficit, and on fundus examination bilateral papilledema was there. So, is it a primary headache or a secondary headache? Yes, it is a secondary headache because we had highlighted red flags, that is patient is postpartum, came with blurring of vision, bilateral tonic-clonic seizure and papilledema on fundus examination. Then what will be the first investigation in this case? As already discussed by the radiology department, as this is a postpartum female, the recommended investigation of choice is MRI brain with MR venography. Plain NCCT head is not recommended unless the MRI is contraindicated or there is non-availability of MRI, then we can go for CT venography. As discussed, MRI brain with venography was done. MRI brain shows area of abnormally increased signal intensity in superior sagittal and transverse right sinus, and in venography there is right transverse sinus thrombosis. So our diagnosis is cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. Then when should we suspect CVST? If the patient is young with new onset headache, having seizures, with atypical focal deficits like bilateral leg weakness, which was usually due to the venous infarct, which are non-territorial, often hemorrhagic, and maybe bilateral or parasagittal in location. Other points which point towards the CVST are papilledema and altered sensorium. CVST commonly occurs in the patient who are usually postpartum or on oral contraceptive pills or who are severely dehydrated, or the patient having any other hypercoagulable state. I would like to point that in more than 90% of the cases who have CVST, headache is present with other symptoms, but only 15% of the patient have isolated headache. And these are usually women on OCPs, pregnant females, 6-week postpartum and hormonal therapy. We started the patient on low molecular weight heparin and the patient became better, and we discharged the patient on warfarin. Now coming to third case scenario. We have 24-year-old female came with holocranial daily headache for 20 days, which was worse in the morning and on bending forward and lying down. She also had blurring of vision and occasional diplopia. There was no history of any focal neurological deficit. She was obese and on oral contraceptive pills. On examination, she had high BMI with reduced visual acuity and right lateral rectus palsy along with bilateral papilledema on fundus examination. Now I would like to ask whether it is a primary or a secondary headache. Yes, it is a secondary headache as the patient is having red flags like positional variation, diplopia, blurring of vision. Then what will be the first investigation in this case? In this case, MRI brain with MRI venography can be done as the patient is on OCP and is obese. CT is not recommended in this case. We checked the fundus of the patient and it was suggestive of ill-defined disc margins with grade 4 papilledema. Then we did the lumbar puncture with opening pressure of more than 40 cm of water, and CSF was acellular with normal protein and sugar. As discussed earlier, the features of raised ICP was shown in the MRI. So, as per the modified Dundee criteria, the diagnosis is idiopathic intracranial hypertension. And when do we suspect IIH? If the patient is young, obese, came with chronic daily headache, having transient visual obscuration, pulsatile tinnitus, diplopia, bilateral papilledema, and normal neurological examination. So, coming to the management, our patient had grade 4 papilledema. So, we did CSF diversion by doing lumboperitoneal shunt with the help of neurosurgery team. Other surgical intervention can be done is optic nerve sheath fenestration, and both of these procedures are available in our institute. One of the most interesting differential of postural headache is spontaneous intracranial hypotension. So we discuss our another case, a 25 years old female who came with orthostatic headache which was worse on standing and relieved on lying down. MRI brain was done and was suggestive of subdural fluid collection, engorgement of the venous sinuses, pituitary enlargement, sagging of brain. We then did MRI myelogram to localize the site of leak, followed by the dural patch with the help of neuroanesthesia department. Now we are heading to our last case scenario. We have a 26 years old female with right episodic headache for 5 years, which was throbbing and pulsatile with 3 to 4 episodes per month, associated with nausea, vomiting, photophobia and phonophobia. Examination was normal. So, is it a primary or a secondary headache? Is any neuroimaging required in this case? If yes, then which neuroimaging is required? And how we will manage? As this is a primary headache and it is a clinical diagnosis, neuroimaging is usually not required. But if need to be done, then an MRI brain is recommended in this context. So the diagnosis is chronic episodic migraine without aura with a migraine disability assessment score of 9, which come under mild disability grade 2. Since the patient had episodic headache, which was non-disabling, thus we are not starting the patient on any pharmacological treatment, and we advise the patient for non-pharmacological management like lifestyle modification to identify trigger and avoid them, cognitive behavioral therapy, physical and mind body intervention, weight management and nutritional supplements. Otherwise, pharmacological therapy of migraine is of two types, acute and preventive. Acute is to abort the attack and preventive is to prevent the attack. Now we will discuss the advanced techniques used in the migraine. These are neuromodulation devices. They are divided into two types, peripheral and central. As already discussed in the earlier slides, there is a cortical spreading depression in the migraine. So this central device helps to cut it off by resulting in the acute management of headache. Similarly, peripheral neuromodulation devices modulated the trigeminal-vascular pathway and abort the attack. Some of them are Cephali and Gamma. These are the few available neuromodulation devices available for migraine treatment. Finally, let us consolidate our understanding by reviewing the standard approach to headache. We will start it by taking the history of the patient by asking the site, quality, intensity, duration, associated features, aggravating and relieving factors. Then we will look for any red flag as discussed earlier. If there is no red flags, then the patient is having the primary headache such as migraine, cluster type or tension type headache as discussed earlier. If the red flags are present, then it is a secondary headache and it needs detailed evaluation as we had discussed earlier in the slides.